Alabama at Kentucky. Alabama in bounce back mode. They were really seemingly turning it on, 8-game winning streak, and they had covered 5 in a row, but it gets snapped in a 74-64 home loss to Ole Miss. They committed 21 turnovers, and they were 5 of 20 from 3-point range. So that's a huge testament to Chris Beard's defense, but it's also points out to you, if Alabama's committing 21 turnovers and shooting 25% from 3, it's going to be a rough night at the office. They're fortunate that the defense played pretty well. Now, Darion Reed was out for that game, and I don't know when the SEC injury report comes out for Saturday games. I'm guessing tomorrow, as we were recording on early Thursday afternoon. But Reed averages 8.1 points and 3.4 rebounds a game. And Houston Mallett, the Pepperdine transfer and 3-point shooter, has also missed the last couple games with a knee injury. So he is pretty questionable as well. Before we get Jay's opinion and our guests on the lines, let me just rip off a few stats here. Alabama's now 14-3 straight up, 9-8 against the spread. They have played 5 road games, 4-1 straight up. The only loss being at Purdue, 3-2 ATS in those games. The only other non-cover, they were laying a bunch up in the North Dakota, where Grant Nelson is from. Also, their combined scores on the road, for those that are going to be looking at the total, the 5 road games Alabama's played, combined scores of 182, 156, 187, 173, and 165. We'll talk about this when we guess the line here in a minute. But if Bama is an underdog, they are 2-0 both straight up and ATS as a dog this year. Out in Vegas, as a 4-point dog, they beat Houston 85-80, and as a 1.5-point dog, they went to Chapel Hill and beat North Carolina 94-79. With all that said, the under is 9-7-1 overall for Bama, because they've had a lot of totals in the 160s and even 170s. As for Kentucky, and by the way, noon Eastern ESPN, if I didn't mention that, Kentucky also 14-3, 9-7-1 ATS. They are 9-8 overall. To the over, and the last head-to-head last year was at Rupp, and Kentucky won 117-95 as a 2-point favorite, and the 212 combined points flew over one of the highest totals you'll see, 176.5-point total, and it blew it away. All right. I made Kentucky a 1-point favorite, but will not be surprised at all if they're a bigger favorite. I'm just really bullish on Bama in general, and I haven't looked at KenPom yet, but I'll let you have the floor as I look up what KenPom has.
All right. Ole Miss is a tournament team. And yes, they lost at home and they lost in Tuscaloosa, and it was a midweek game. And I think we're starting to see the midweek games, road teams may have better success than the Saturday games. I don't know if that's going to be a trend that plays out. I haven't put the microscope of research to that yet, but it at least feels that way.
Yeah.
There's no possible way Alabama plays a Nate Oates team plays that sloppy and shoots that poorly as they did Tuesday night.
And did you
Ole
see
Miss took advantage. Ole Miss took advantage. All credit Ole Miss. I'm not bad-mouthing Ole Miss. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm an Auburn graduate. I am not an Alabama apologist. But that's the worst game this Alabama team's going to play all season.
Yep.
And I am overwhelmingly impressed with what Mark Pope's done. Mark Pope has come in. Mark Pope's doing this with not just what John Calipari was trying to do with all these first year, and when he was doing it with the one and done era, but Calipari was doing it with 5-star dudes, and he was asking for time. Pope has married this group of newcomers, of fresh faces, of transfer portal guys. Do you know they've got 7 guys who have scored 1,000 points in their college career on their roster?
I did not know that, but that is very impressive.
7.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the experience of that team, and they're coming together. They're playing together. I love everything Mark Pope's done. There's no way I'm betting against Alabama in this bounce back scenario. And my favorite bet of the weekend, as long as it's not in the 180s, this game's going to be played in the 90s or the 100s.
Yep. I agree with everything you just said. So with that in mind, what line do you think we're going to see?
I think we're going to see, I think Kentucky is on the short list of college programs with Notre Dame football, Alabama football, Duke basketball that Vegas understands there's a sizable portion of the population who wants to bet on that team. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to get Alabama +3, +4.
Okay, so KenPom has Kentucky winning 90-89, so it's 179. It's almost the total in the 180s. It's almost, God, that's higher than the total last year, which was 176.5. 179 and Kentucky by 1. I like Alabama in this game. And another thing, when you were talking about the bounce back, did you see Nate Oates was pissed in his post game at himself and his players? Those boys are getting worked at practice this week. I like Alabama to win this game, and I think it goes over as well. But wow, it's hard to play it over 179. But I just gave you, they played to 212 last year. 212.
And Florida is a better defensive team, or Alabama's a better defensive. I mean, Florida is a better defensive team, and Kentucky put 106 on them.
206
I mean, it was that was 206.
Yeah.
And Alabama's probably both teams playing their B-plus game. Alabama's a better offensive team than Florida.
So going off KenPom here, they have Kentucky number 2 nationally in offensive efficiency, and they only have them 74th in defensive efficiency. Now their pace is only number 32, but that's still an up-tempo pace. Alabama 7th in offensive efficiency. Wow, they're much better defensively this year. 35th. And then in pace, Alabama is 6th. In 2-point percentage, they are 3rd. And maybe they need to go to the rim more and not rely on the 3. But I know that's not really Oates' style. But Alabama was playing spectacular going into that Ole Miss game. And they just laid an egg. 21 turnovers, 5 of 20 from 3. Alabama's not going to beat hardly anybody with those kind of numbers.
Nobody's beating anybody with those kind of numbers.
No,
nobody.
Exactly.
I mean, 20 turnovers and you're shooting 20% from 3. 2 questions. One, and I know it's rough and all the things that come with that. But if Alabama's putting 85 points on Houston, who is number 1 nationally on a neutral site, mind you, and I get it, neutral, rough. But you put 85 on Houston, who's number 1 nationally defensive efficiency, they're going to have a ton of success against a Kentucky defense that is less than great. Second, is the winner of this game your number 2 team in the SEC? I mean, because, and I know Janai Broom's hurt, and I know we'll get to Auburn and Georgia in a minute, and Auburn's going to lose some games. But right now, it's Auburn, and then a whole bunch of other teams fighting to be who that number 2 team is. Is the winner of this game take a step forward in that conversation?
Yeah. And look, if Alabama had not lost to Ole Miss, I was ready to call Alabama the best team in the SEC while Broom is out. But then Kentucky just had this just spectacular week. So I think if they beat Alabama to cap it off, Yeah, the winner of this game, I think, if you're power rating the SEC going into next week, the winner of this game is number 2. Now, to anybody pointing out that the Houston-Alabama game went to overtime, Alabama only scored 7 points in overtime. It was 78-78 at the end of regulation. So your point is not diminished by the overtime session, because Houston at KenPom is number 1 in the nation in defensive efficiency. And what did I say? Kentucky was like 74th. So yeah. All right. So Jay likes Alabama and the over. I like Alabama, and I lean over. If it's like 182, I don't know that I'm going to pull the
How can you
trigger.
play 182 though? I mean, that's banking on those kids getting in the 90s.
Right.
I mean,
I'm a lean to the over. I'm a lean to the over. Let me be clear. But man, just what if it's not officiated the way you want it, and you don't get many free throws or something to that effect, or just another bad shooting night by Bama? You could be in trouble. But I'm a lean to the over, but I'm definitely on Bama as an underdog.
I'm with you.